noise coming from that creature.
Welcome, everyone, to the 8th episode of the Bizarre Base broadcast.
Tonight I'm here with Missy Lathrop
of the Paranormal Five. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Nate. How are you?
I'm doing great.
That's awesome.
We were just talking about earlier about how nice the weather is here, because we're both from Maine.
Yes, we are. Yes, and it's been so nice the past few days. Not too hot, not too chilly, just great.
I wish it would rain a little bit more, because I like rain, and it cools everything off.
Yes, we definitely do need the rain since the craze. Like, I've heard a lot of concern about droughts this year.
Yes,
We didn't get a ton of snow. It was a very crazy winter.
All right, so do you want to start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm Missy from Paranormal 5. Me and my husband started this group. It's kind of like a connection group. We don't claim to be paranormal investigators, which we do our own personal investigation on our own time and for our own fun, but we don't go in to investigate homes or anything like that.
Right.
We try to be the referral for people. If people have come to us and talked to us and asked questions and needed help, so we love being that resource for people to send them to the people that they need to talk to.
Oh, totally.
We also kind of started this group because my children, our 3 children that we have a huge passion for the paranormal, and it's something that is a normal dinner conversation, and having these normal these conversations and making it not it's a scary thing, and making it so it's because it's just obviously beyond the paranormal. That can kind of be a scary thing for a child, and just being able to have these normal conversations and not put the fear in it and not them learn everything about the paranormal from television shows. I feel like that's kind of another huge part of the reason why we talked about it and started this whole thing.
So, what's how did you specifically get involved in this kind of thing?
I feel like everybody else, it's just something that drew you in. I was born in the 80s, raised in the 90s, so I was watching sightings on sci-fi. I was watching Unsolved Mysteries, and it kind of just drew me in, and it's something that's really just stuck with me for a really long time, and also kind of uncovering now as an older adult, seeing sensitivities and feelings and seeing things as a child. I was able to put the pieces together and feel like I am now on this spiritual path. And I always say, I don't label myself as a psychic or medium.
Right.
But getting onto that path and trying to figure out okay, so I wasn't crazy as a 5-year-old, having this fear of not being able to go into this room. There's reasons behind it.
Right.
So it's something I've always kind of been passionate about. And I was very lucky as a child. My parents kind of grew to accept it, and they kind of went with it. They enjoyed it. We would go out on our own investigations.
Oh, that's awesome.
To local cemeteries and stuff like that. Nothing too crazy. We would go down to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania a lot as a child. So yeah, we just they embraced it and loved it, and it was kind of awesome. So
that is awesome.
I'm very lucky. My parents didn't think I was crazy.
Right. No, it's awesome. It's always great to have that kind of support when you sort of have those kind of fringe, quote unquote fringe interests.
Yes, no, it is nice. And then even now as an adult, my mom loves going out investigating and doing that stuff with us when she can. So.
So the Paranormal Five is you, your husband, and your kids, yes?
Yeah, we're the kids aren't really so much involved, obviously, in the page and all that stuff.
Right.
But yes, no, it's us and the kids. And like I said, we're just out there talking about it, and kind of have group meetings. We have local group meetings, talking kind of almost just a support networking like group meeting or group. It's not even a meeting, but
Right.
with other like-minded people in the community, and also people like that are kind of like on the fence and like I don't know what to believe. So it's awesome. Like I kind of got the influence for starting this page from or this group from a KRI center that was based down in Stratham, New Hampshire, and they would have like group meetings and do other like classes and stuff like that. And I got a lot of inspiration to kind of start this up in where we are in southern Maine. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to go over a little bit about your online presence and what you guys do through the online group? Or
totally. And so online, we do a weekly live where we go live for like a half hour or so, and like we'll pick a topic each week, and I'll kind of do some research into it and share what I find and talk about it. I also do like random weekly shares about something that I just get excited to share with everybody about. It could be about like a book or a new blog post that I have, or anything in between, or an experience, or just a random story, just something fun. And then obviously we share our events there on the page, so people can get in contact with us. But that's pretty much it. And we share some random stuff on there too, just to kind of keep it funny.
So you and I met for the first time actually was that Wednesday? Last Wednesday?
Yeah, it was last week.
Yeah. At the International Cryptozoology Museum. And so, some people consider cryptozoology to be paranormal, some don't, because some things are obviously just undiscovered species of animals, but some parts have their foot in, ufology and paranormal, more abstract. I shouldn't say abstract, maybe intangible.
Yeah.
Like the paranormal. Because some people say that like Sasquatch it has like a foot in the spirit world. The Jersey Devil is a demon. So what can you tell me about your interest in cryptozoology, I guess?
Okay, well, I will first off say that I am not like nearly as like I feel like I recently discovered, like probably within like the past year or so, like I kind of dived deeper a little bit more into cryptids and all of that.
Okay.
And I will honestly say that I've always been forever, like I'm always just like, oh, I love Bigfoot, like he's so cool, like the whole like, yeah, he's a total like real, like he's here, like you and me, like in real life. And actually when I was doing research for one of our lives, we were talking about cryptids, and I talked about a pudgewucky, and like I don't really, and then I was thinking, like as I was kind of reading this, and like how they supposedly have these like gifts and these magical like powers, and I'm just like, does that kind of make them more of like an elemental spirit?
Right. That's actually so then I was very interesting.
And so I was just like, wait a minute. So can like a cryptid and like an elemental spirit kind of can they be the same thing? And then then I was thinking, and it's like from some accounts that I've heard about Bigfoot, people saying like how they were like intuitively spoken to by Bigfoot to like almost just like look over there, like, or got this sense of like urgency that they needed to walk a little bit further, and there was Bigfoot or whatever. So I'm so on the fence with this, because what I naturally, like what I believe, like what I've read from Lauren Coleman and from many others, like I was so like, nope, it's all here in our real time, like here, like you and me. But then I'm just like, wait a minute, like I kept on going to rabbit holes.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's what I feel like you do with this in anything with the paranormal, when it comes to ufology, with cryptids, with ghost spirits, like it's just, you don't know.
Yes, absolutely. It's all about, for me at least, looking at all of the available quote unquote evidence and history and stuff like that, and then coming to your own conclusions.
Yeah, like I feel like just being able to be open-minded to possibly change like your position and your thoughts on something, which kind of just blew my mind. Like, and I was just like wait a minute, like I feel like everything that I thought I knew, which whatever, I like I don't, no one really knows, but I was like, oh my god, like everything that I believed is completely like I'm second guessing it. So
no, absolutely. And It's interesting because there's parts where it's like, okay, yeah, like Sasquatch, all of the available physical evidence that we have would suggest that it's a great ape or something like that. That's the basic, I'll say basic without going onto any tangents or anything, the basic idea of Sasquatch. And then someone told me a while ago when I was interviewing them that the BFRO, the big Bigfoot research group that catalogs all of the worldwide, or the U.S. sighting, or North American sightings.
Yeah.
Apparently, one of their people said that they discount, I think it was, don't quote me on this, but 30% of the sightings that they receive just because it involved a UFO. And 30% is of all Bigfoot sightings from the biggest group ever is like a really big percentage to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it definitely is. Like, and you just also have to think like about like these hot spots, like for UFOs, these hot spots like Bridgewater Triangle, Chestnut Ridge. Like you just think about all like the activity, like what is going on in these areas, like, and it's amazing.
No, absolutely. Is there anything in? I'll actually go back. I'll go back to the Pukwudgie thing that you mentioned because I found that really interesting. Because I recently did my first documentary last Halloween. It was released, called Pine State Phantoms, where we went to this woman's. It was an investigation where we went to this woman's house in Sabattis, Maine, and she had all of this paranormal activity: Sasquatch, UFOs, ghosts, Pukwudgies, and one of the sort of conclusions that we came to was, because it wasn't just her seeing this, it was other people who went to investigate would claim they saw little figures in the woods, and her conclusion was that it's not so much what happened in the house, but it's the land. And she actually said that she thought there might be some correlation between Pukwudgies and nature elementals. So I thought that was really interesting that you actually brought that up.
Yeah, no,
really
fairies, trolls, like all of the Sasquatches, like they are elemental spirits. And like a quick like side note, but like as like a witch that practices witchcraft, like leaving out offerings for these beings, these elemental spirits, is something that I definitely, and also something that I also instill in my children, because we believe that it's all is one, and just it's a big connection. So that's why I feel like when I did like that, when I was talking about the Pukwudgie, and I felt like I was kind of drawn to it because maybe I just felt like I need to open up my eyes a little bit to the possibilities where it could be more than just one thing. But yeah, I kind of lost where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
But yeah, no, I definitely feel like the outside definitely has its own different types of energy, and I think that there's definitely a lot more than just the cryptids and everything. Like, I definitely believe that there's definitely trolls and fairies and Pukwudgies and these magical creatures, like, amongst that can definitely bring and possibly even add more to the whole, like, heighten of energy to boost off of, like, to make paranormal things happen or feed into it and be a part of it. And yeah, I'm
absolutely.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, absolutely. And I think it's great that you're actually teaching your kids about it, because that also helps them to learn how to not only to keep an open mind, but to have to teach them to have a respect for nature and things like that. And I think that's really amazing.
Oh, well, thank you.
No, I think that's great. And I think actually on your last one, you guys were talking about, on your last live stream, you guys were talking about Robert the Doll, and the whole thing with respect came up. You guys started talking about that because you have to, you have to ask permission before you can take a picture or something like that.
Yes, apparently yes, you have to take ask permission, and I think someone even was in that live was talking about how you had to do that with Annabelle, but
right.
Definitely, like, that's one thing, like, I just can't, like, knock into my head, like, my children's heads enough, or just anybody in this field. I'm just like, it comes with respect, because it's just, when it comes to elemental, cryptids, ghosts, spirits, whatever, like, UFOs, aliens, like, it's the respect, like, we're all here together, like, and I just feel like it's something that you need to definitely have in this field. And sometimes I feel like there's a little bit of lack of, not necessarily like people are like lacking it, maybe just sometimes forget it.
Well, that's kind of one of the reasons I brought it up, was that there's sort of this and again, I'm not calling anyone out. I'm not trying to, this is not political at all, but a lot of the people, or not a lot, but a number of them, there's definitely a handful of them, not only in cryptozoology or but in the paranormal, again, in all these fields, there's always these hints of like, oh, like respect nature, respect other people, and then it seems like there are people who aren't even like taking that into consideration or following the things, like the lessons that would appear through studying these things.
Yeah, no, and I feel like sometimes, like, I hate, whatever, I'll bring it up, but like I feel like sometimes like you would even see it in like television shows when like people are asking like, okay, yes, I'll leave if you make this thing light up, but you're not leaving, you're staying, and you're continuously opening and wanting that line of communication. Yes, exactly. Like sometimes like I've intuitively walked into a situation and I did not feel welcome, and right, I'm just like, okay, I'm sorry, this is your space, I respect that, and I hope that you find peace, like, and you can move on from this situation, so you're not stuck here. If you want to be stuck here, like, you know.
Right.
Also, another thing I've done on investigations is also kind of like leave like little offerings, like not necessarily for nature, but also like in a haunted location, like leaving certain herbs and stuff like that to bring peace, yes, and to give thanks. And that's something that I feel like we should all do. Not necessarily like leave these offerings, but like once you're done doing an EVP session, when you're done doing any type of paranormal investigation, is giving thanks to these, because it's a lot of energy for them. It's a lot, I feel like, for them just as much as it is for us to do it. And just taking a moment and giving thanks, I feel like is something that really should be happening all the time.
No, absolutely. And there's even a phenomenon, whatever you believe, or whatever you're convinced, I should say, that Sasquatch is, whether you think it's a great ape or a something more spiritual, there's a phenomenon known as gifting, whether you know what of that or not, where people leave, and I think it goes back to Native American lore, where they would leave little gifts and make trinkets and leave food and stuff like that, and they would say the Sasquatch would take it and then leave something else, whether it was plants or something weaved of sticks or something like that, as just a mutual respect between the two.
Yes, no, totally, I agree. And it's actually kind of funny that you brought that up, is that we are going to be going to Breton Woods next weekend, or next week, to kind of do some, you know, have the kids go out and we'll try to do some Bigfooting and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
And I was thinking, I'm just like, oh, we should do a gifting, because we've never done that. Like,
right.
And I was just trying to think, and I'm just like, give ideas for the kids, stuff like that. But
that's awesome.
I might have to talk about that after, get some more info, or maybe some input from you, because like I said, this is like, we just go out to places that I think that there, or where I've seen there's been like activity in the past or stuff like that. And,
no, absolutely. I'm actually working on, not to cut you off, I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay.
I'm actually working on, I should say I've been working on, there's been several delays, unfortunately. I'm working on my own documentary about Maine Sasquatch sightings, and it's a rabbit hole. You find rabbit holes in all of these different things, and there's so many like historical sightings just from all over the state, and it's pretty incredible, because the farther you go up, just people don't realize Maine is the most densely forested state in the United States, and it's incredible.
No, it is. Yes, it is. It is. It definitely is incredible. Like, I feel like there's so much of Maine that's been, like, not obviously it's been discovered, but like, you know, like people haven't been out in certain parts. Like, it's huge.
Yeah, looking at it from a satellite on Google Earth, looking at the state of Maine, you're like, okay, that's small. Like, we've been there, and then you get out there, and people don't realize just how vast like the forests are here in New England in general.
So yes, no, I definitely agree with you. It's definitely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it is. It definitely is different. Like.
Yeah. So I guess going off of that, or I guess sort of moving on from that, do you want to talk about any particular investigations that you've done? If there's any that you'd like to talk about, that is.
Yeah, I'm always down, and I'm sorry, Nate, if you've probably heard me talk about this a million times, but I am really passionate about the history down in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Like,
no,
I
that's
feel
great.
like I have like a huge draw to this town just because of just a lot of different things.
Right.
It's one of like the first few places that like I was able to do like an actual investigation,
Right.
and like an official like investigation with like awesome tools and everything like that.
Totally.
With all like the bells and whistles. So I'll share like an experience that I had with my children, like for their first paranormal experience, because it's always just like, I don't know, like a proud mom moment kind of.
Right.
So we were down in Gettysburg. We were on the battlefield. It was day 2 of the battlefield, so it was Little Round Top in Devil's Den, kind of in that area.
Yep.
And so we were up on the Devil's Den area, and me and the kids were, Richie was somewhere off, and me and the kids were kind of walking our way to the top, and we kind of bumped into a couple that was up at the top, and they're just like, oh, are you guys out here hunting ghosts? And we were just like, oh yeah, so we're like, totally, like, my daughter was just like, yeah, awesome, like, totally, yeah, we are, like, total, like a total diva, pretty much. Like,
right.
Anyways, so they were just like, well, look. And so we're looking across at this highest point of Devil's Den, which is this huge rock formation. It's kind of like an ungodly rock formation, like in the middle. It's very strange, and it kind of gives off its own energy, like,
oh, really?
itself. Yes, if you haven't been to Gettysburg, Nate, you gotta get on that. But anyway,
right.
So we're up at this highest point that you can climb on these rock formations, and across is this open field, and there's a stream that runs from it, and it's called it's called the Plum Run. But during the battle, or days after the battle, they called it the Bloody Run because it just ran red. Like, it was
right. Yeah, I've heard about that.
It was, yeah, so it was very dramatic. And then across is called the Slaughter Pen, which was just a very intense area during battle on the second day. And so so we're looking across, and then all of a sudden I just see in this middle of the field is this figure of, I'm assuming that it was a man,
right.
and he's just kind of walking back and forth, almost just like in a formation. And then my daughter, like, I kind of look at her, and like her mouth is just like wide open, and my son kind of looks at me, and he's just like, is that what a ghost is supposed to look like? Like, and I'm just like looking at this, I'm just like, oh my god. And so like it's doing like this formation. My kids will tell you that it was dancing, because that's kind of what it looked like it was doing. And so Richie meets up with us, and he's just like, what are you guys looking at? Well, we're still here, like, it just eyes glued to what we're seeing across the field. And the couple was still there, like, with us. And I pointed to the field. I'm just like, I couldn't even like say anything. And Richie saw this figure too, just doing the same formation. And then the couple was just like, he'll disappear, but he's been coming back. And we're just like, what? And so lo and behold, so we're watching, and then all of a sudden, like, this glowish, bluish, whatever figure that we had seen literally had just disappeared. And so we thought that the show was over, and we're just like, oh my god, like, that was so intense. We were talking to the couple, because they actually went down closer to the other side, and they're just like, it keeps on going and just disappearing. And the couple, it made it seem like they lived in the area. Like, they've come to this area many times and had different types of experiences. So they went off, and lo and behold, like, just a few moments after, like I said, they kind of walked away. It came back.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
It came back. Yeah.
Jeez.
And so it was just a really incredible moment to be able to, like, kind of see this, like, through, not only through our eyes, but kind of watching it through my children's eyes, like, at the same time, and just, like, them being like, wow. Like, yeah,
I can imagine.
And so we watched it again, and then it disappeared, and we're just like, okay, do we wait again, or do we just go? But, like, I don't know how people feel about photos. Like, I feel like I would sit here and judge, like, a person's photo and be like, I wasn't there, so I just take it as it is. Like, I'm going to take your word for it. But we did get it on picture, like, we did get a bunch of different photos, which is kind of funny because as we started, like, our trip, or, like, our walk down to Devil's Den, we parked up top and walked our way down, and then we made our way back up. And as pictures of us up at the top that Richie was taking, we had pictures of the spirit in these pictures even before we even knew that it was there.
Really? Wow.
So it kind of validated the couple saying that it's been here for a while. Like, he keeps on disappearing and reappearing. So I feel like that
really
kind of gave it a little bit more validation or whatever to our story, because, like, we're just following it. I'm just like, oh my God, Richie, we actually got it in this, like, this photo.
So what's your kind of, like, takeaway when something like that happens? Like, I can imagine that it's, like, profound.
Yeah, it was kind of like a huge, like, an adrenaline rush, because I feel like I was kind of just like an oh crap, like, situation. Yeah. Like, is this, like, I feel like, is there somebody over there?
Right.
Like, I'm trying to possibly think of all the other, like, explanations that you can give. And I know that people can walk over to that side of the field. It's open. Like, there's certain times of the year where you can't because it's just overgrown.
Right.
And it just probably would be miserable to walk through it. But for it to literally just disappear and without a trace, and then, like, I don't know. My takeaway from it is just, I can't explain it. And it was an experience that I've never had before. I was very excited to be able to share that experience with my children, and I still have to process it sometimes, like, when I even tell the story, because I feel like I sound crazy. Right.
No, that makes sense.
And that's why we also started Paranormal 5, because we're not crazy. Like, these things happen.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Sorry to keep going back to Bigfoot. It's weird if there isn't a Bigfoot, okay? Or if there aren't ghosts, or if there aren't lake monsters or UFOs or something like that. Because then what's happening? Right.
Exactly.
It's weird. It's weird weird if there isn't something hidden in the woods, or if there isn't something, appearing and disappearing. Because then what is it?
Exactly. Yes. No, I totally agree. It kind of goes off of even more so, like, okay, so a psychic or a medium or somebody, I always say just my spiritual path. Yes. But somebody's, like, on this, like, so are we just actually crazy?
Exactly, yeah.
Like, because half the time I literally think that I am. And I'm like, no, this isn't real.
It's like, are these, it's not just is one person crazy, it's are these communities of people throughout history crazy? All of these people, and all of these reports, like, they all can't be, lies or hoaxes or something like that. It just doesn't make, like, statistically, that does not make sense.
Yeah, I definitely, like, even as with you talking about, like, skeptics and stuff like that, like, definitely, like, or hoaxes and stuff like that, like, I definitely try to keep my guard up, like, even myself, like, I'm constantly, like, I don't know, like, but and like I said, even with myself, I'm just like, I don't even know, but it's just,
well,
like
then,
you said, it's just why.
Yeah, no, and going to we mentioned hoaxing. Sometimes it's not always intentional. Sometimes it's these people are just not knowledgeable of the things that are around them. So if someone saw like someone from the city who grew up in the city went camping, right, and they hear, because if you go camping and you hear squirrels moving around in the brush at night sound a lot bigger, like it could exactly, you might interpret that as a Bigfoot or something, or dust particles, whatever you believe of orbs and stuff. There are some of them can be debunked as, dust particles and the camera focusing at a weird angle and stuff like that.
Dust particles, like humidity, like moisture.
Exactly.
Yes, no, 110%. Like I kind of stay out of that whole debate. Like I definitely have my opinion about orbs and all that. Like I have physically seen orbs, like leave people's, like, almost just like their aura.
Well, right, and that's
being,
what I'm
like,
saying.
around people, but it's kind of hard to, like I said when I was talking about our picture that we have of the spirit that we saw down in Gettysburg. Like you really don't know the situation.
Yeah, and well,
so I would never cast judgment on somebody that didn't believe my picture. Like, I get it. Like, you weren't there.
No, absolutely. So. And I guess the point I was sort of trying to make was that if someone is, I guess, willing to believe every little thing or interpret every little thing as paranormal rather than looking at all of the possibilities before coming to a a Sasquatch or a ghost conclusion or something like that. I guess I'm just saying there are people like that who are not intentionally trying to, mislead anyone or anything like that. They're just people who, aren't fully informed about certain things.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you on that, definitely.
So, is that the only paranormal encounter that you've had, or any sort of encounter?
No, I've had a few other encounters down in Gettysburg. I've had encounters like I almost just like I physically like being able to physically see things. I've been down in Gettysburg both times.
Right.
I've been touched before a few times, and I pick up on things, so I try not to like put my like I feel like I'm always picking up on things, or I don't try to sound like cocky or anything.
No,
like
it makes
that.
sense.
But I do intuitively pick up on things. I sense things. I see things, not necessarily like physically see them, but a picture comes into my mind, and I can kind of work through that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of different things. Actually, at the old jail down in York, Maine,
Yep.
My butt was grabbed one time in the old jail. It was kind of
Right.
like a kind of a funny story, but
Right.
yeah, there's been a bunch of different experiences, and I feel like that's just what keeps on like driving. Like, what else am I going to see? Like, I'm almost just waiting for that next sighting that I had down in Gettysburg. Like, that's why I feel like you just keep on going. It's like an adrenaline rush. Like, you just gotta get more.
No, absolutely. That's how I feel. With all of this, it's the curiosity and like the drive to sort of figure out, what these things are, and I know that's like the fuel, sort of, to keep going forward.
Yeah, and I just want to keep on learning more, and just like, why stop with what I think that I know, because there's so much. Like, I try not to limit myself to that, like keeping an open mind to all of this, and get ready to kind of change your beliefs possibly sometimes and how you felt about things.
No, totally. I absolutely agree. So again, we talked about sort of a little bit about, the disrespect between, some groups and researchers and stuff like that. And I guess that sort of keeping that in mind, obviously, how would you improve the field of not just paranormal research, but I guess anomalous research in general?
The only thing that I feel like that I feel like I preach it now, it's just like, we're all out here trying to get the same common, like, we all have the same common goal, is that we want answers, we want proof, we want all those things. And whether your techniques and how you do things, like, we're all out here doing the same thing, like, just working together. I feel like regardless, it's just always just being, even down to just a decent human being, it's just being respectful of other people's beliefs and their methods, even if you may not agree with it. But
yeah, totally.
Just being open-minded to it and just respecting it, I think is just kind of, like, I never really, really dived deep into it, but other than just, as long as they're doing it respectfully and respecting how I do my thing, then I'm good.
Right, totally. And that,
like, I'm never going to judge anybody because of the tools that they have or their equipment that they use, or
right,
how they perceive certain things. I would never cast judgment on it, because I would never want anybody to do that to me.
Yes, absolutely. No, that reminds me of sort of this thing I experienced with, I don't know if you're familiar with John Tenney. He's a paranormal speaker.
Yeah.
I was grateful enough to be able to see him at the last Cryptozoology conference last April, I believe, because he was speaking there. And I was working AV for the conference, so I got to be with him and talk to him and stuff. And,
that's so super cool.
Oh, he's easily one of my favorite people, and I followed him on Twitter that night, and he followed me back like immediately. And I was like, oh, that's really cool.
That's so cool. I was in a total fangirl.
No, he's a great guy. I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'm working up the nerve to ask him for an interview, but
that'd be cool.
Yeah. Anyways, he told this story, or not even a story. It was just this piece of I think this is how he opened up the whole talk. Was that he said Bigfoot, what he said was raise your hand if you believe in Bigfoot, because it was a cryptozoology conference, so I guess he started with Bigfoot, and everyone raised their hands. Or not everyone, but a good number of people raised their hands, and then he said, okay, how many people believe in gnomes? And, maybe one or two, not as much as the Bigfoot people. And then said 3, how many people believe in aliens? And again, probably maybe not as many as the Sasquatch people, but more than the gnomes raised their hands. And he made the point that pretty much what a gnome is just a small person. Like a humanoid, like what could be a person, like a type of person. And that kind of struck me. It was like, wow, that is like absolutely more likely than a bipedal, like ape walking in the woods. And that always just struck me. I don't know, just for some reason. So it makes you just think, like, just don't. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of going to go off topic a little bit. But no, that's okay. It's totally okay.
Watching, I'm going to bring it back to a television show, which sometimes I hate relating to it, but, like, I remember watching an episode on Bigfoot findings, or what, I even forget the show.
Yep.
On Animal Planet. And so they were talking about how, like, they were kind of making fun of, like, paranormal investigators, like, in one of their things. So I'm just like,
right.
Like, why you guys judge that? Like,
yes.
What you guys are doing, like, may seem crazy in the techniques, but sometimes we kind of use the same techniques. Like, I just feel, just be open-minded to all of it, because I feel like it's just all connected in some way or another.
Well, no, and that reminds me, did you watch, are you aware of the Hellier series?
I love I'm a huge Greg and Dana Newkirk fan.
Yeah, no, they're great.
Yeah.
I enjoyed, I enjoyed the show. I enjoyed the series. This is not me bashing it or anything. This is my this is my critique of the sort of the first season, beginning of the first season, is that, if I remember correctly, what they did was, with the footprints, they showed it to a bunch of different people, because I believe they have, like, the philosophy that it's sort of all connected, like what you said. And they brought it to the Bigfoot people. The Bigfoot researchers pointed out that in the tracks that there were actually dermal ridges in there. And again, I like the series. It's very well done. I feel like they didn't stick with the researching the physical evidence enough and sort of jumped right into the paranormal, I think.
No, I definitely see that. And I feel like they definitely believe, like, how it is just all, like you said, it's all kind of one, it's all connected. So
right.
Maybe that might have been, like, a little bit why, but no, I can totally, I remember that part of the season with that happening.
Right.
But yeah, no, you got to be, again, you need to be open to possible, like, why just limit it to one part when you can kind of find out more from studying all different sides of it.
No, absolutely. And again, that's not bashing the series or anything.
I don't think it's bashing it at all. It's just being open to other possibilities.
Yeah, no, that's just what that reminded me of.
Yeah, no, totally.
So I think we're getting to the last couple questions.
Okay.
My page just keeps refreshing randomly, so that's great.
It's probably from your cats.
Probably doing something somewhere.
Always someone out there trying to get that jabbing.
Yeah, I'd also like to say, this is completely off topic. It's just about the podcast itself. I noticed when editing these, I hear a little jingle in the background sometimes, and it's apparently, because I heard it the other day, I was like, wait a sec, I've heard that before. And it's the jingling of my cat's collars that I can't edit out. So that's a little Easter egg. If you ever hear that, I've already heard it several times during this episode, now that I'm aware of it. That is my cat's collar in the background running around. So that's, I've heard that I've heard that every single episode while editing. I'm like, what is that? I don't know what that is.
That's funny. It's just them letting you know that they're still there.
Yes, exactly. They're always watching in the shadows. So aside, you talked about going to do the gifting thing with the Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Are there any other upcoming projects or anything like that you're a part of that you have coming up?
So yeah, we're doing that. I am teaming up with Essex County Ghost Project, that they're based down in Essex County, Massachusetts.
Yeah,
And
I
we're
think
gonna
you
be
mentioned
doing,
that
like,
on your last live stream.
Yeah, we're going to be teaming up and kind of doing like a random like talk show every once in a while. I don't know like how often we're going to be doing it a month, but
Right.
we're going to be working together with them, kind of just working together in this whole like paranormal unity, like working with everybody. Like that's what I'm all about.
No,
so
that's great.
We're doing that. No, we're going down to Salem, Massachusetts next week, which is always a super exciting trip for us to take. And we're going down to Gettysburg in July and also in August. So,
Oh, sweet.
yeah. So I'm
That's
excited
awesome.
for that. Yeah, I try to get down there as often as I can. But yeah, I think that's pretty much about it. Like, we kind of just wing it. I just kind of wing it as I go. I'm not a good planner. So
I
I'm
get
like
it.
a last
No, I
minute
totally
person.
get that. It's not only is it easier to just wing it, and also more fun, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like a little adventure, but it's also, what did I say? It's easier, it's more fun. I just totally blanked on what that third thing was, so never mind.
That's funny.
No, I'd love to sometime if we could plan something, maybe do an investigation together.
Oh my god, that would be amazing. I would
Yeah.
totally be down for that anytime, Nate. I would love to see how, like, a real Sasquatcher does it.
Yeah.
How put me to shame.
No, that'd be great.
I do have to say that my kids, my two sons, they have an amazing call. Like,
Oh, really?
they've got it down. Oh, yeah. Like,
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's hilarious just watching them do it.
Right, now do they do the howl? The long,
Yeah.
like, yep, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yep, they both have the howl. My daughter is like the tree knocker. She actually has like an actual stick that she uses.
That's fantastic. I had one and I lost it.
Oh, that's
So
sick.
I don't know
I know,
how
I
I
almost
lose a
just-
big like half log in my house, but
Maybe I blame it on the cats. I blame it on the cats.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I'm actually like thinking about like wood burning something into like her stick
sweet.
for her. But yeah,
That's
she's
awesome.
totally into that. So
Well, here,
and that's
since-
what I love about it. It's like not only like are we going out and like kind of maybe answering some questions and making their minds think more, they're also just getting outside.
Yeah, totally.
And which is just amazing.
No, that's great. That's also part of what got me into it, aside from, the shows and stuff, was just being outside and with nature, because my first love was nature and animals, and stemming from that, dinosaurs, but that's an unrelated note.
No, that's okay. My son is obsessed with dinosaurs.
Oh
and
my
also
God.
Congratulations on the dinosaur certificate.
Yes,
like, I was like, can I sign my son up for that?
Yeah, it's a free course.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I should probably look into that.
The paleobiology. There are some things that are a little difficult even for me, because it didn't.
Yeah.
It's an online class, so Google is also a big help.
I'll have to check it out. Yeah. So.
What was my point I was making? I was talking about nature was
Yeah.
I've always been interested in, because I grew up in like, the middle of the woods essentially.
Mhm.
So when I found out there was the phenomena, I guess that's also part of why Sasquatch interests me so much, is that there's mystery in the woods, and that's always captivated me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. There's so much legend and lore. Yeah. Within
Absolutely.
just woods or areas and stuff like that. Yeah. No, it's just crazy to think about. So.
yeah, and going back to the Sasquatch calls, you said they do the howls, and I've got wood knocking kind of down to a science. I've got a call that I could teach them that's very easy. It's because Sasquatches do the howl, they do the blood curdling woman scream,
Yeah.
which chills my blood.
I could probably handle that one.
That would be great. That would be awesome, actually. And the one, my personal favorite, which I've only ever heard Les Stroud, the Survivor Man, do on his he did a whole season where he investigated Sasquatch,
Oh, that's cool.
which is a great ape, sort of like a, but much louder. I don't want to clip my audio right now. So that's my
I
personal
get that,
favorite.
But, no, that would be super cool. Yeah, I
absolutely.
can totally see them totally being into that. Like,
Yeah, it's fun. So
oh, yeah,
hopefully
no,
we can get
they
together.
Get pretty loud. Like, I feel bad for our neighbors because it's not like we
No.
just do it like when we're out in the
Right.
woods going on walks. They do it inside the house. Like, it's constant.
That's great. I think Cliff Barrickman of Finding Bigfoot said he practiced his in the shower.
Oh, I could see
So-
that. Like, the good octaves and stuff like that.
Exactly.
It's a good room to practice. Yeah, no, I totally see that.
So I guess
We all sing in the shower, but
yeah, exactly. Some people sing. He does Bigfoot calls.
Yeah.
It's not weird.
No, not at all.
His poor wife, though, unless you know. So I guess sort of this is my final question is, if there's something, like a piece of advice, a life lesson, anything that you'd like to tell everyone, sort of as a final words, what would it be?
Oh man.
And it doesn't have to be related to paranormal at all. Just a piece of maybe a life lesson or philosophy or anything.
Oh, I would definitely just say, I feel like it just kind of comes with everything. It's just how there's so much, like, I feel like there's just so much, like, stop and goes, like, I feel like, in life. Like, how you feel like you're finally getting ahead, and then all of a sudden it's just, like, you hit a wall, and you hit a, like, you can't feel like you can't go any further. Like, just keep trucking. Keep trucking. Like, I feel like that's just totally, like, I joke about it, all the time, and I'm just like, yeah, it's my no situation. Like, yeah, you can have it, but actually, no, you can't. Like,
right.
I feel like that is like my go-to word or my go-to phrase that I came up through during this whole like stay-at-home order was, yeah, no, that's not gonna happen.
No, totally, yeah.
It's kind of corny. It means something to me.
No, that's great. That's exactly why I asked for it. I'm trying to do this. This is a new thing. I started with the last episode, and I tell people to interpret the question however they want, whether it's relating to paranormal or cryptozoology or just personal advice. It's however you interpret it. So
yeah, and also just don't give up. It's just everybody's struggling and dealing with it, and you're not the first person to go through it. And
absolutely.
Not feel like you're alone. So
no,
but no, I
that's
think
great.
that's awesome that you're doing that.
No, yeah, it's literally you're the second person I've asked this on the podcast, and I'm trying to do it at the end of every episode because I think a lot of people could benefit from it.
Yes, I definitely think so, because it can just go either way. It can go be super inspirational or kind of dorky like mine. So
no, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Oh, thank you, Nate. Definitely, I definitely enjoyed it. And very honored that you would ask me. So I definitely appreciate it.
No, totally. We were. I think we've been friends on Facebook through mutual friends, and then it was pretty much just us liking and sharing each other's stuff in the groups and stuff.
Yep, which I enjoy that. I like it.
No, absolutely.
Keep it going.
Yeah, speaking of which, before we stop, where can people follow you? Do you want to do any plugs and stuff like that? I know we talked about Paranormal 5 and stuff.
Yes, so you can find us online at paranormal5.com, and that's just pretty much just my blog. I've been kind of slacking here the past couple of weeks just because it's summer, the weather's nicer.
No, it's understandable.
But that's where all my blogs are. I've talked about like my witchcraft and Gettysburg experiences and what Paranormal 5 means to me as a mom. And then the other one is the Facebook at Paranormal 5, and then they can also follow me on Instagram at Missy Lathrop 8706, I think, and then also at Paranormal 5 on Instagram as well. So.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you.
Oh, no, I greatly appreciate it. Feel honored again. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.